Beta Ray Bill is a card I do not generally recommend, though it is a good card and has a lot of fun synergies. It's a card that is just, in my opinion, a worse version of a card that doesn't see that much play. And to play this card, you have to incorporate lots of different core pieces or supplemental pieces to make it work. So it doesn't really fit a lot of different archetype strategies or different archetype cores, and is its own niche that also has some consistency issues. So let's begin. How you doing, everybody? Today we are talking about the worthy Beta Ray Bill, another tool in the toolbox for the Thor Jane Foster list. This proves to be a pretty interesting card, and we're kind of going to talk about what its ins and outs, what you should use it for, and whether I think it's good enough to be played or bought, I guess, generally. Alright, so Beta Ray Bill is a 4 energy, 6 power Thor alternative that shuffles Stormbreaker to his hand, which is a 0/1. So this one has a little bit of power. That card will double Beta Ray Bill's power. So you play this, it goes from a 4/6 to a 4/12. And if you keep triggering Stormbreaker's effect, you can keep doubling it. So over time, in some certain decks, some certain locations, this can get really out of hand. This can get really powerful. So it's got huge potential. It works with Thor, works with Jane Foster, works with Wong Odin. It's a 4-drop, so it works with Zabu. And Thor, Lockjaw has also been a pretty popular combo, so you might see Beta Ray Bill combo with that. So this is essentially another Thor to combo with the Jane Foster. Jane Foster is kind of missing that premium 4-drop where you can go Thor, Beta, Jane Foster, turn 6. You can play double hammer plus something else. Either you want to play Wong double hammer or Odin double hammer, that kind of thing, and you can make really cool dudes. So it's a pretty good combo piece. However, it does have some limitations. First of all, this type of card has actually been released before. When Thor came out all the way in the beta, it releases a 4/6, I believe, and with the hammer giving you +6. So that was a really bad card. However, this time it's different. This time has passed, power creep has went down, so of course it's going to be good when you release it here. However, it also still has that same kind of problems. I would say Thor is a better card than Beta in essence. Since it's cheaper, you have more ways to play it. Beta has less time to really activate. And even if you play Zabu, the payoff is the same. Essentially, you lose 2 power, but it's essentially the same +6, right? Thor's +6, Beta's +6. However, you're paying an extra amount to do that. So in a lot of cases, if you were going to be playing Beta, you'd rather be playing Thor. So it's either you're playing both cards or you're just playing a worse Thor, in my opinion. And you do have to build specifically for Beta. So when it comes to whether I'd recommend this card or not, overall, it's not a bad card, but it's not a card I think is core in really any decks. And it's also just, you have alternatives since Thor exists. If you are really needing a card that can combo with Jane Foster, things like that, you can just play Thor. You don't have to add Beta Ray Bill. Beta Ray Bill really shines if you're playing both Thor and Beta in the same deck so that you can have double hammer, things like that. But that does mean it only fits in a smaller percentage of decks. It's not like an overwhelmingly flexible card. It's not a card I think you'll really have to have in your deck or really miss if you don't have it. And it still has the same consistency issues that Thor has. Thor's not played in every deck. Thor's not played in most decks because there is a like a downside to playing this card. It means you don't get to draw your core pieces, and it means that sometimes you're just playing a 3/4. Sometimes you're just playing a 4/6. Which honestly, 4/6 no ability, very bad, right? Like just bad base stats. A lot of fours are 4/9 or 4 more than 9 with some other payoff or other downside, right? So this one is a 4/12, which I think is great. I think a 4/12, if you can consistently play a 4/12, is actually quite good stats. However, in a lot of games, you're not gonna get 4/12 stat line. You're gonna get a 4/6, right? And that's gonna feel bad. And those are the games where you really have to analyze beta. If things are going perfect, then yeah, it's a great card. But if things are normal, if things are like Thor, then a lot of times you're playing a pretty weak 4 drop, sometimes a pretty weak 3 drop to complement the pretty weak 4 drop, and it's just not something you have to have in your collection. That's the main takeaway. Unlike Grandmaster, where it fits in a ton of different decks and it's a card that you gets better with time, you might want in your collection. It's hard for this one to get better with time, and it's not something you really need in your collection. Now, I will say, if you are a Thor lover, if you're a Jane Foster player, absolutely get this card. Don't deny yourself the joy of going Thor, Beta, Jane Foster, Double Hammer, Odin into double on reveal, getting 5 million Beta Ray build power or something. Don't deny yourself. Get the card if you are a Thor player, but you probably already have it, right? Like it's for the people that don't know whether they think this card is good or not. They're looking for, hey, should I get this? Is it good enough that I'm going to be playing it randomly in a best deck format? I think it's unlikely that this will be like super top meta piece card, and you have to get it. So overall, generally, you don't have to get it. It's a good card if you like Jane Foster, but I think Thor is better, and most decks are not playing Thor. So the likelihood that Beta Ray jumps out to be, hey, this is better than Thor in most scenarios, super unlikely. And then if you have to play both in your specific deck, so it's kind of pigeonholed into that issue. But I think it's fine for cards to have that kind of pigeonhole. But if you are just like generally looking for, should I get this or not? No. All right, so let's go through the spotlights. Let's go through some deck builds. So first off, we have the spotlight, and in the spotlight, generally it's the one with Galactus, the one with Elsa. Elsa's pretty weak, though they did say that they were planning on buffing Elsa probably in the OTA this week. So if you are looking to get Galactus, looking to get Elsa, definitely take a look and see if they buff Elsa in the OTA, and if that is good enough to make you play it. But for now, Elsa is not very good. Elsa, I would say, is like a very bad card right now, not worth picking up. So you're really just picking it up because you either want Beta or Galactus. If you don't have Galactus, you can definitely pick it up. I don't have Galactus, and I'm not really that interested in getting Galactus, but there's definitely people that do like Galactus and don't have it, so you can pick it up here if you like. And then if you're just picking up for Beta Ray Bill, you just have to be a Thor lover. But if you are, that's perfectly fine. It's a good card. It has good potential. It's just not a card that really fits in that many decks, and is unlikely to be fitting in more decks as time passes, right? You're kind of pigeonholed a little bit. Now, in terms of deck builds that we have, first one I have here is just a nice Zabu is broken with Darkhawk, so put decks that are already good, add the new card in a Darkhawk shell, and then call it a day. Like this is usually just always the best way of playing 4-drops. Put it in a Darkhawk shell, and then put the supplemental pieces in, call it a day, and it's doing well. Like essentially, you just have this Darkhawk deck, and you have Miss Marvel. You get other good cards, but then you get to play Thor, Beta, Jane Foster, Odin, which is a really good general base. And the Darkhawk is nice because you at least have other ways of playing Odin. You have the Rock Slide, the last turn you have the Korg, so you can just set up where you've got wherever you're playing your Odin also has a Rock Slide, a Korg, and your Darkhawk is going to be pretty big. However, might also just be killed. But then again, if the Darkhawk's getting killed, then your Beta Ray Bill's also probably not getting killed. So it's generally fine. You just have to be like prepared for one of your cards to get killed. But what are you gonna do about that? But yeah, definitely a pretty good type of deck. It's the tried and true 4-drop standard. Like this has been the staple for years. For I say years, but like ever since Darkhawks really um, showcased itself as a top deck, this type of format's just always been good. Next up, we have Lockjaw. So this is a evolved Lockjaw shell. So this was one of the more popular decks once when High Evolutionary came out. It just had so much tempo, so much power. It was really hard to compete with the big dudes you kept putting out. So we're kind of going back to that shell. Thor was a pretty useful piece in that shell. Now you can play Thor and Beta Ray Bill in that shell. You get the hammers. The hammers will give you things to pull up with your Lockjaw. You can also cycle the hammer over and over again. And then on top here, we want to be playing Odin. So this type of Lockjaw shell runs Doctor Doom Odin as a supplemental piece, which I think are perfectly great cards. So makes sense to me. So kind of like this as well. If you want to play big dudes, lots of big dudes, this lets you do that. Next up, we have a junk annihilus kind of piece. This one's the weirdest one to me. It's very reminiscent of the Hitmonkey variant, which we're going to showcase afterwards. But here you're kind of less reliant on the Hitmonkey and more reliant on junk. So junk does have this kind of empty last turn scenario sometimes where there's not much to do in the last turn. So here you can add Jane Foster as an alternative last turn metric. So on 5 you can do that and then Annihilus on 6, or you can just Annihilus and then play your hammers and stuff on 6 that way. So it's more interesting. This is definitely for people that like playing junk. You can add 2 and 2 together, find a good combo that works, and seems to be doing well. Then the last one I have here is Hidden Monkey variant. So this was it feels more flavor of the month in terms of the metagame analysis, but this was a pretty fun deck that people figured out where you can go Thor, Jane Foster, and then you'll have hammers, and then your hammer with Wasp gives you a lot of activations for your Hidden Monkey. So you're able to just like all the last turn play like tons and tons of cards, right? You'll go like Hidden Monkey, Mysterio, Wasp, Hammer, plus another 1-drop, and then you just like pop in the final turn. It was pretty good. There's not a lot of people playing Sandman or anything that could really mess with you too hard. People aren't Wave doesn't mess you up anymore, so just a nice little piece. Now you get to play with Beta Ray Bill, and it's decent. So this is definitely another nice card. You get to add some tech in if you want to play Shang-Chi. This one doesn't have Shang-Chi, but you do have Shadow King, which in a lot of decks is just as good as Shang-Chi. So pretty good kind of tempo deck if you want to play that, if you like playing Hidden Monkey and things like that. So the main issue, kind of like it's like Darkhawk, quote unquote, but not like Darkhawk at all. Because Darkhawk is way more flexible and fits in more decks, but you kind of play beta with this base of Thor, Beta, Jane Foster, right? These last 3 cards. Almost all the decks are going to be seeing or running Thor, Beta, Jane Foster. So essentially, in essence, it's a 1 card that kind of encourages you to play 3, maybe 4 if you're an Odin lover, but mostly 3. And if you weren't playing Thor before, it's hard to say that this makes your random deck with Thor, Beta, Jane Foster better. Or just whatever deck. If you're playing Beta and you don't have 3 empty spaces, you'd rather just be playing Thor. Thor is more flexible in a lot of cases. Thor can win like Cloning Vats super easily. Beta Ray Bill cannot win Cloning Vats that easily, things like that. So there's definitely some limitations to beta compared to Thor, and it's just like the nature of the beast. You're going to be wanting the cheaper version most of the time, so you have to kind of play all three for it to justify yourself. And a lot of decks don't have that spot to be playing all these three cards, and like it makes sense. That's where I have the no not recommendation. I think it's a playable card. It has its moments, and you can definitely do some crazy things. It's also a super fun card if you have the combos. So there are things to be done with this card that makes it really cool. But from a general progression standpoint, it's not really the card that stands out this season for me. So yeah, that's what we have for today. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Take care of yourselves and have a wonderful rest of your day.
Educated Colin Snap. Once you watch him, you won't go back. He'll teach you to marvel snap. Your skills will be improved.